Alright, so today we're going to be talking about how to change fractions into percents and how to change percents into fractions. Alright, so the vocabulary for today, we have percents. So a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. Remember, percents are always out of 100. So we have three examples down at the bottom of different ways that you can view percents. So if we look at the one on the left, this one is 80%. I'm sure that this is the most common way that you're used to seeing percents. The one off to the right, this is written in fraction form. Remember, all percents are compared, that compares a number to 100. So this is 80 over 100. And this is just if you just write out what you're saying, it's 80 out of 100. So if we look off to the right, we have a block here that has 100 spaces on it. So it has 100 spaces because, remember, it's out of 100. So if we're going to fill in an 80% of it, we have to fill in 80 of these squares. So if we just do a quick little fill in, it's everything, every square, except 20 of the squares. We're filling in 80 squares. So this is an example of 80%. This last 20% should not be filled in. So what we're going to do now, we're going to write these percents as fractions. So let's start off with the first one. This one is, we have 60%. Remember, percents are always out of 100. So the easiest, fastest way that we could make this into a fraction, numerator is 60, denominator always is out of 100. So what we could do is we could leave it as 60 over 100, but always simplify. Always simplify. So if we simplify, we need to figure out what are the common factors of 60 and 100. If we want to, we could just divide both of these by 10. So if we divide them both by 10, then the numerator could be 6, denominator could be 10. With this, we are dividing by 10. So now we have 6/10. So as this isn't completely simplified, we can go even further because both of these are even numbers. So we can make this into even further. So if we divide both by 2, how many times? What is 6 divided by 2? That's 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 3/5, we cannot simplify this anymore. So 3/5 is 60% written as a fraction. So let's look off to the right where we have 12%. Remember, the easiest thing we could do, write it as a fraction, 12 over 100, always out of 100. So it looks like both of these, both 12 and 100, are even numbers, so this can be simplified. So this could, if we divide both by 2, so 12 divided by 2 is 6. 2 divided by 100 is 50. Now we could even go even further. We could still divide this by 2 because 6 and 50 are even numbers. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 50 divided by 2 is 25. So 3/25. There's no common factor for either one of these, for either 3 or 25. So 3/25 is equivalent to 12%. Alright, so what I want you to do is to pause the video, try to turn this percent into a fraction, and unpause the video when you're ready to see what I've done. Alright, so if we have 40%, remember the easiest way to turn a percent into a fraction is to always put that percent over 100. So 40 over 100. Now, it's not simplified, so we need to simplify it some more. So both 40 and 100 are even. So what we could do is just divide them both by 2. So 40 divided by 2 is 20. 100 divided by 2 is 50. So this still isn't completely simplified all the way down. So we need to go a little bit further. Since both are divisible by 10, we'll divide both by 10. So 20 divided by 10 is 2. 50 divided by 10 is 5. So there's no common factors for 2 and 5. So 40% is the exact same as 2/5. So now we're going to be working with some really small numbers and some larger numbers. So let's look at the first one. We're talking about 0.8%. This is a percent that is less than 1%. So if we want to turn 0.8% into a fraction, remember, easiest thing that you could do, put it over 100. But I need the numerator to be a whole number. 0.8 is not a whole number. 0.8 is still a decimal. I don't want that decimal point right there. So what I'm going to do, I am going to want to move this decimal point over to the right. So I in the numerator I would just have an 8. So what I'm going to do is to multiply the numerator by 10 and the denominator by 10. So if I move this 0.8, all I would be doing is moving the decimal point over, and that would make it an 8 in the numerator. And 100 times 10, all you gotta do is just tack another 0 on the end to make it 1,000. So now we have 8 over 1,000. So it's not simplified yet because 8's an even number, 1,000's an even number. So let's try to simplify it. So if we divide 8 divided by 2 and 1,000 divided by 2, 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. Now it's still not even simplified all the way. Because think about this. Isn't 4 an even number and 500 is an even number? So these still can be divided by 2. So I'm just going to write it down here. So if we have 4 over 500 and we are going to divide them both by 2. Divide them both by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 500 divided by 2 is 250. And we still see this is still not simplified. 2 is an even number. 250 is an even number. So we can still go even further. I know it takes a little bit long. It takes long to simplify it out. But it still needs to be simplified all the way down to the bottom. So if we divide 2 by 2 and 250 by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 250 divided by 2 is 125. So 1 over 125, or 1/125 is the correct answer for changing 0.8% into a fraction. So now we have a percent that's greater than 100. We have 175%. So easiest way to turn 175% into a fraction is to rewrite it as 175 over 100. But we're not finished because we have to simplify. So let's divide it through. They're both not even, so you can't divide it by 2. And you can't divide it by 10 because 175 is not divided by 10. But we can divide it by 5. So if we divide it by 5, $175 divided by 5 is 35, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So now we have 35 divided by 20. So it looks like it's not simplified yet, because 35 and 20 you could still divide by 5 again. So if we have 135 divided by 20, if you divide it by 5 again, $35 divided by 5 is 7. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So 7 over 4, there are not any common factors where we could simplify it. This is as far down as we could simplify it. So 175% is equal to 7 over 4. Remember, it has to be more than 4 because it's more than 100%. 4 divided by 4 would be 100%, but since it is greater than 100%, the numerator has to be larger than the denominator. Alright, so what I want you to do now is pause the video, try it yourself, look back at your notes to help you out. Pause the video, unpause the video when you're ready to see what I have done. Alright, so if we, on the left side, we have 0.6%. Remember, to write it as a fraction, always just write it over 100, just to start off with. But we don't want to see the decimal point, so we're going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 10. So 6 times 10 is equal to 60, or is equal to 6, excuse me, it's equal to 6, because all we're doing is moving the decimal point over 1 to the right. So 100 times 10 is equal to 1,000. So 6 over 1,000, we could simplify this further because both of them are even. 6 is even, 1,000 is even. So if we divide both by 2, 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. 1,000 divided by 2 is equal to 500. And there are not any common factors for 3 and 500, so our final answer is 3/500ths. So let's look at the right side. We have a percent that's greater than 100. We have 200%. So let's simplify this down, or instead of simplify it down, let's write it as a fraction. So easily write it over 100. Now, let us simplify it down. It looks like both are actually divisible by 100. So what we could do is just straight up just go and divide the numerator and the denominator by 100. So what is 200 divided by 100? What's an easier way? Just think about what is 2 divided by 1. So 2 divided by 1, or 200 divided by 2 by 100 is equal to 2. 100 divided by 100 is 1. So 2 over 1 is our final answer. 2 over 1 is also the same thing as just 2. 2 over 1 and 2 are the exact same thing. So now what we're going to do, since we changed the percents into fractions, now we're going to change some fractions into percents. So what we need to remember is that fractions can be written, or percents are written as over 100. So what we need to do, if we have 1/4, we have to find the percent that is equal, that would have 100 in the denominator. Always have 100 in the denominator. So what we could do is we could either do the butterfly method that we previously learned, or we could use the multiply or divide method that we learned as well. And this I know mentally that we could divide 4, or we could multiply a number by 4 to equal 100. So in this case, I can multiply 4 by 25 to get 100. So whatever I do to the denominator, I always have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 25 is equal to 25. So, since we now have a fraction over 100, 1/4 written as a fraction is 25 over 100. But if we write it as a percent, we have 25%. Final answer. So, let's look at the next one. If we have 6/5, remember, we always want to make it equal to 100. So, 5 times what is equal to 100? In this case, 5 times 20 is equal to 100. So, whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So, 6 times 20 is equal to 120. So, since we now have a fraction with 100 in our denominator, 6/5 written as a percent is 120%. So now it's your turn. What I want you to do is to turn these fractions into percents. So pause the video, unpause the video when you're ready to see what I've done. Alright, so now we have, let's look off to the left one, we have 3/10. Remember, always has to be out of 100. So, 10 times what is equal to 100? So 10 times 10 is equal to 100. So whatever we do in the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So 3 times 10 is equal to 30. So since we have 30 over 100, remember percents are always out of 100, so 3/10 written as a percent is 30%. Alright, now we have the next one. We have 7 over 2, or we have 7 seconds. So let's rewrite this as a fraction over 100. So 2 times what is equal to 100? So 2 times 50 is equal to 100. So whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So 7 times 50 is equal to 350. So since we have our fraction with 100 in the denominator, 7 seconds is equal to 350%.